So, how much does it cost to launch a luxury brand? Now, whilst it's difficult to give a precise figure, we can look at some costs that are involved. If you're just at the beginning of your journey, you may want to bootstrap some of the things to keep the cost down. Now, it will also depend on whether you will get some sort of investment or whether you are financing your venture yourself. So let's get straight to that. My name is Kira and I specialize in luxury brands, analyzing what's going on in the market. So in the beginning, unless you have some sort of investments and funds, you will be doing a lot of things yourself. So here it's important to understand your strengths and weaknesses. What can you do yourself and what sort of things you will need to outsource. Now, of course, if you want to launch a luxury brand, the costs will usually be higher because of the quality of the materials and similar stuff that you will need to invest into. For example, if you are good at web designing, the visual stuff or copywriting, of course you can do it yourself, and maybe you're not as good at other things and you will need to outsource them. Here, I don't want to discourage you, but I also want to be realistic and give you an overview of the costs that will most likely be involved in launching a luxury brand. I will share some costs, but they will mainly be based on the UK market because this is something I'm the most familiar with. And if you live in another country where you can take advantage of better rates, then, well, that's great. Okay, so in the very beginning, the first thing you probably want to do is some sort of market research. Perhaps you will hire a company or a freelance person who can do that for you. Now here, costs can vary massively. You can get someone to do it for you maybe for a few £1,000s, a few $1,000s, or you can get an agency to do it properly for you, which can cost anything from 10, 20, 50,000 pounds. If you already have an idea in mind, I presume that you already know your market, so you can do a big chunk or even all of it yourself. So you've done your market research and you know what kind of brand you want to launch. So let's speak about branding. An important thing when you're starting out is a story, your story. So you probably will need someone who will help you to craft that story so that it's relatable, it's interesting, and it's catching. Then other things come into play such as colors, tone of voice, name, and mood boards and strategy. The strategy for your social media, for your promotions, for your PR. So here it can cost you something like 10, 15 or 50,000 pounds if you hire someone else to do it. And it will depend on the agency you're working with. For example, I was quoted £10,000 for one project. It was an agency that had a smaller portfolio. They didn't work with super big brands. Then another agency quoted £50,000, and even that price included a discount because it was a well-known agency that worked with established brands. So obviously their charges are different. Now the reason they gave us a discount because they really liked our project and they were willing to do it for us because it would help their portfolio. At the time, we had a healthy budget, so it seemed like a good deal, but I understand that not everyone is in the same position. So here at the start, you probably want to do some bootstrapping. And a workaround here is if you hire someone who's just starting out, who can deliver the same quality and high standards as in the luxury sector. Okay, next one up is admin and setting up costs. Registering company, NDS, contracts, banking, trademarks, insurance, perhaps rent, accounting services. If you start trading, you will need to hire an accountant. Unless you have experience to do it yourself, or companies, it's better to have someone who knows what they're doing. If it's a restaurant, then you will need licenses and that sort of stuff. And then you will need to set up your digital space. So your websites, your social media, domain names, all that stuff. Once you have the technical side set up, you want to decorate your space. So in terms of the website, you will need a copy and some very good, very high quality visuals. If you're selling a service or you need stock photography, if you're opting in for stock photography, then most likely you will need to pay for it because everything that is free has been used many times, and if you are a luxury brand, you want something unique. So you also need to consider costs for the visuals. Then you will need content for your social media. So again, you will need the visuals and copy. Now, in terms of posts, it will depend on you how long you will want your posts to be, whether you will be writing a long copy or whether it will be something very short and sweet. Now, if you're living in London, I know that photography services are quite expensive. So I would suggest opting in for something like Manchester, where they have a huge talent base and you can get a better deal than in London. I did my fair share of photo shoots in Manchester and can definitely vouch for that. Then another thing to consider is the legwork when you're posting on social media, that is. So you will need someone to constantly not write posts, but also actually get them out there. So here again, the question comes whether you will be doing it yourself or whether you will be hiring someone to do that for you. If you're launching a product, you will need prototypes. Prototypes are usually a bit more expensive, probably twice more expensive compared to buying in bulk, but you won't need a lot of them. What else comes under cost here is trial and error. So you will probably have to order quite a few prototypes until they get it right. So I would really suggest opting in for a manufacturer who understands your vision and who has experience working with high-end brands. You want to ensure that there is no miscommunication, so your directions have to be very, very clear, and it applies to other things as well, such as branding. Then we have sourcing. So perhaps your product will require sourcing some sort of materials, whether you are making it yourself or you are outsourcing. I know it's not easy to find good suppliers because those who have high standards, they usually have enough clients to work with. So it's a little difficult to get through to them, especially if you are very small and in the beginning they may be a little reluctant to work with you because they don't know how serious you are and whether you will continue with your venture. Then you will need to think about your packaging costs, and packaging is super important in luxury because it's part of the experience. You want your packaging to be sustainable, plastic-free. Something wrapped in plastic doesn't look very luxurious. So if you are getting, let's say, boxes, it has to be a well-made card box. For example, the orange Hermès box. It is made in France and Italy. So it's a very good quality and durable and very recognizable piece. So it's something you don't even want to throw away. Other things that come under packaging is wrapping paper, some sort of certification of authenticity, then a nice thank you note and envelopes. So here is what Hermès say about their packaging. The orange box is made in France and Italy by 7 cardboard manufacturers. Attractive and robust, its qualities make it an iconic object in its own right, which is true. So you definitely want to think about your packaging. Okay, so in terms of marketing, in the digital space, you will probably be running some ads, and the cost of them will depend on the country. So somewhere like the US, UK, Germany, the costs will be higher than in other countries. The budget here will depend on how many ads you want to run, but it can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. Then another thing to consider is if you are a luxury brand, you want some high quality videos. Again, you will probably need to outsource someone to do it for you, unless you're specialized in videography and you can do it yourself. Then other things to consider is trade shows, pop-ups, showrooms, participating at events, and also PR. You can get an agency to do it for you, but it will cost you a few £1,000s, probably a few $1,000s, but the results can vary. You can also do it yourself. There are ways you can get mentioned by magazines such as Vogue, GQ, Forbes, and others. Then you will need to think about outsourcing costs. So we've already spoken that for some jobs, for some things, you will need to hire people, but then perhaps you will need some permanent staff who will help you with admin or packaging or something like that. Then you need to have a budget for unplanned expenses. Honestly, even if you plan everything ahead, something comes up, so you need to be prepared for that. I know it only too well because every time you have everything sorted and planned, you think you've calculated everything, but then other costs come up out of nowhere. Now let's look at some interesting information that I found online. For example, an article from makeitbritish.co.uk revealed that 50% of founders said that they needed more than £15,000 to launch their brands. That is fashion brands, not necessarily luxury brands. So that's about $20,000. So the question arises, can you do it for less than 1,000? Well, there's this famous story that was mentioned in the same article. It's the Cambridge Satchel story. Apparently, the founder launched the multi-million brand in her kitchen with just £600. So that's about $750. So if you want to launch a luxury brand, you need to look at it as a long-term game. Now, there are some instances where brands grew very quickly. It really depends on things like the market, the idea, so when, what, and how. I know some fashion brands used crowdfunding in the past, but again, if you want to use crowdfunding, you still need to promote your idea and get people on board. So you will need funds for that. You can seek investors, but they really need to believe in you and understand the luxury market, because they may have a different view in terms of quality and the standards that you want to deliver. Things like loans, although I would be very careful with that, and also grants is an option. So the best thing to do is to have a good idea in advance about what kind of costs are involved in launching a luxury brand. It will really help you to plan for the future. So there you have it, a quick overview of the costs that are involved in launching a luxury brand. If you would like to know more about the luxury industry and how to launch your own luxury brand, check out the description box below. I am currently running this little thing, free consultations, and I will only choose 3 people. So if you're interested, check out the description box below. There will be a link, put in the details, and I will choose 3 people who will have the consultations with me. That was it. Thanks for watching. Bye.